The worst time to look for income opportunities is when you desperately needed it. I've had a month or a season where I've closed 4 clients in 5 days, and I've had periods where it seemed as if everything had dried up, but your bills don't dry up, right? If you have been there, then you know how quickly a money problem can become an identity problem. Stop thinking, I don't have enough clients right now, and start thinking, what's wrong with me? Why does this seem to work for everyone else? Why can't I figure this out? Did I miss something? Am I doing something wrong? Do I need to start over, right? I think there's something that we don't talk about enough when we're trying to build a life to give us more freedom or margin. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. What happens when the plan you worked so hard to create suddenly stops feeling secure? And no, this conversation will have nothing to do with how to get another client or how to push your way through a financially slower month. Instead, in today's video, I want to talk about how financial fear can impact your decision making, how to know when to stay the course versus when you've simply become afraid to change directions, and why I think you can pivot without blowing your entire life up. And if you're in a season where the money isn't flowing exactly how you expected it right now, I know your temptation is to make everything urgent because you want an answer immediately to feel secure again, right? You want to know exactly what you should be doing next because when you take a look at your bank account and you're running the numbers in your head about the bills that are piling up, just see what happens next doesn't feel very comforting, right? I am not here today to give you that kind of advice. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to do so. Let me tell you what I've learned. You can respond to a financial problem without making fear become the person who is responding to the problems. And those two things can look similar from the outside. You might decide to take a job or a second job just to financially stabilize yourself. And that's a smart decision. You might decide to change directions in your business, realize you don't actually want to keep doing things the way you've been doing them. And that's another smart decision. Maybe you decide to just stay with what you've built or accomplished up to this point because you still believe in it and you're just going through a difficult season. The problem isn't that there are too many possible choices. The problem is when you're scared, when you're making fear-based decisions, every choice starts to feel as if it means something about your entire life. And that is where we get ourselves in trouble because now a slow month isn't just a slow month. It's a I'm not good enough conversation, right? 3 or 4 back-to-back rejections becomes proof that this is never going to happen for you. And pretty soon you start making decisions from a deficit, from a place of I need to fix myself, instead of asking yourself a more useful question. What is this season actually telling me? And this is where getting older, turning 40, has changed the way that I see my life. There was a time that being committed to something meant that I had to stay long enough within it to prove that I could make it work. Who was I proving it to? I don't know. Probably myself. And if I changed directions, it meant I maybe wasn't disciplined enough or focused enough, or that I wasted all of that time, or that people would look at me and think, there she goes again, starting over again, changing her mind again. But there is a point in life that you understand who you are, and you've reached a point where you have enough years behind you that you can start to decide to apply that information to change the course of your life in a way that's mutually beneficial. Because you know things now that you didn't know when you made that original decision. You know the emotional costs of a decision that you make if you decide to keep doing something. You know what your family needs of you. You know what energizes you. You know what drains you. That, for me, is why I don't believe changing your mind at this stage in life, over 40, over 50, deserves the same type of interpretation as it did when you were 22 years old. Sometimes it just means you're not abandoning the plan, you're updating it, right? I really like this distinction. I think so many women, so many people get trapped by the version of themselves who made a few core decisions in their lives 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. And you start making decisions not just from a place of obligation, but also because anything less than making and forcing it to work at all costs makes you feel like you're falling behind or went backwards. This is the part I think is interesting and kind of silly when you think about it, because that decision you made 3 years ago, let's say, it doesn't reflect the fact that your life has changed since, that your priorities have changed since. Maybe even your definition of success has changed since. The way you see yourself has changed since. And you're still trying to make an old life fit inside the one that has changed. And I started calling this, when I have this awareness and decide I got to do something about it, permissive pivoting. And that just means giving yourself permission to change directions without making that change mean anything about you, not just negative, positive too. I'm not telling you to quit every single time something gets uncomfortable or to believe that life should just flow naturally and be without constraint or friction. I don't believe that. I am talking simply about having a real conversation with yourself, looking at your life, the results up to this point, and being honest enough with yourself to say, this isn't working the way that I thought it would. And being able to do that without immediately spiraling, immediately beating yourself up, or making it into something that it's not. It's simply an opportunity to exercise permissive pivoting. Here's what's funny. We have this very binary way of putting ourselves in this predicament and seeing the options as if we only have two, right? You can change the way you make money and maintain the skills you've developed. You can take a job and still consider yourself an entrepreneur. You can pause something without deciding you're never coming back to it. And I think that's really important when you're making decisions with a family in mind or that financial responsibility that affects others. Sometimes you're not just afraid of being wrong, you're afraid of disrupting them. And I know exactly what that feels like. Having 4 young kids, having my mom I was taking care of, I've had plenty of moments that I've thought to myself, if I do this here, what's going to happen over there? Or what does this mean for the entire family? What if I make the wrong decision and everyone has to live with it? And you don't want to be reckless. You want to make sure that you're making informed decisions. But underneath all of that, I also think, if I'm being honest, I was so desperate to have certainty before I took the next step. I wanted to know with absolute certainty that the next thing would work before I loosened my grip on what I had right now. But again, we've lived enough life to know life doesn't work that way. Nothing in life works that way. Neither does your faith. There have been so many times that I have prayed for absolute certainty and clarity, and all I've gotten was the light and direction to take one more step. That's it. And that's so frustrating when you're someone who likes to solve things, when you need to figure things out. Maybe the goal isn't to know that you've chosen the perfect path. Maybe the goal is to become the kind of person who can make a decision, notice what happens in the process, and adjust accordingly without falling apart. And if you're in a tight financial season right now, if you are panicking because the invoice hasn't been paid yet, maybe you just got laid off, maybe you're without a next step in your career, and you are watching your friends, family, people online crush it, while you're still trying to figure out how to make this month work, I really want you to understand why I think this feels so consuming. You're not just waiting for money, you're waiting for relief. You're waiting for the moment you can say, we're going to be okay, right? When you don't know when that moment's coming, your mind starts to manufacture certainty. And that's why you suddenly want to change everything. You want a new niche, you want a new job, you want to move to a new city, you want to start over completely, maybe even establish a new goal in a new direction. You want to do anything that's going to make the uncertainty stop. But hear me when I say this, friend. You don't need to necessarily make every decision in your life make sense today when you're in this space. You just need to solve the problem that's actually in front of you. Maybe you need an extra $1,000 so that you can pay a certain bill. That is a completely different problem from, I don't know what to do with my life. You know what I'm saying? When you're living in this fear-based decision making and you're scared of what is going on, those two things feel very similar. But I promise you, you will get your power back if you start to separate them. Because you can say to yourself, I need to make more money right now, without also telling yourself, I'm a complete failure because I'm not making the money I need right now. You can understand that the career you're in is a dead end, or the business that you've built isn't giving you the stability you want, without deciding that you were foolish for staying as long as you have. And that is what Act 3 means to me. It's not that you've figured everything out, it's that you've lived enough life to realize not every decision has to be permanent, and that you can, in fact, survive changing your mind about your life. You can survive these things without them breaking you. So maybe you don't need more certainty. Maybe you do need more honesty to admit what you already know. And that can be uncomfortable because sometimes it's inconvenient to admit what you already know. Sometimes you know you're exhausted or that you don't want what it is that you've prayed for right now. Sometimes you know what you really want is to be in a stable financial season, or that you're staying put because you're afraid of what other people are going to think about you. You can stop pretending you don't hear yourself. And maybe that's the takeaway that I want to leave you with. If you're in a financial drought right now where money is making you question yourself, don't make a permanent decision about your life from a temporary place of fear. Absolutely take your financial situation seriously. Make the practical decision. Take the job if you need the job. Sell more if you need to sell more. Change whatever isn't working for you. But give yourself enough space to ask a different question underneath all of that. And that's simply, what do you actually want? Because the answer might be what you wanted before, or it might not be. Either way, it doesn't make you a failure. You are just making a decision with more information than you had last time. And I happen to think there's something very beautiful about realizing that you don't have to protect every version of yourself that you've been up to this point in your life. You can take what was useful, leave what wasn't, and keep moving. You don't have to start over to do that. You're starting from everything you've already learned about yourself. And that's a much more powerful place to begin in than you realize. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.